Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Meta Cafe, where you can get your morning dose of astrology, human design, and even oracle readings. Grab your cup of coffee or tea or your water and sit down and relax for the next few minutes while we talk about what's going on in the sky. Interesting day today because we're after the spring equinox, and as it usually happens, the spring equinox brings back rain to the Pacific Northwest. Boo hiss, but it's okay. We need the green, and the only way to get the green is to have the water flowing, so we'll be okay with that then. So today, what's going on, right? I have a couple of interesting things I want to tell you about. First, an update about yesterday's and the duck. Good morning, Cassandra. So here's what happened. So later, after I got done on air, I took and copied and pasted some of the things that it said about duck and put it in his Hangouts, because we Google Hangout with one another throughout the day. Well, he never got it. Well, he got it, but he didn't read it, and he should have read it. Because it was talking all about how to stay in the now, to stay calm and cool, right? A duck just sits in the water and swims in the stream, calmly, in harmony with nature, etc., etc. And he ended up hurting himself at work yesterday. He ended up hurting himself at work because I think he got all keyed up because there was lots going on. It was a busy day, and some things just got him really, tightened up, and he ended up hurting his back. So he ended up at the chiropractor last night, getting himself put back into position, getting his bones all whatever lined back up. But on an energetic basis, that is what can happen when you're not in the now, right? Staying in the now, staying in the stream, instead of wandering outside and worrying about things that aren't even in your business. But what I find even more interesting about that is that he's a Libra. And a first house Libra, meaning his rising sign is Libra, and there are a lot of planets sitting then in his first house, which means that Aries is the exact opposite sign of Libra, and it is now populated by the Sun, Mercury, Venus, Uranus, and Eris. So he's got a lot of pressure across the first and the seventh house in his chart. And so it didn't occur to me to tell him about that yesterday morning. This morning, I had a very nice conversation with him and said, look, keep calm, cool, collected. Don't, stay in your business. Don't get into other people's business. But in a way, that's something that's good for all of us to hear, right? Because we don't live, we may be individuals, but we live in a collective. And so something that happens to one of the parts is something that can inform all of the parts. And so I took that as a message for all of us, for me to pass on to you all. Good morning, Suzanne, about staying in the now, about being in this moment. Only in this moment, by the way, do you breathe. There's not breath in the past, and there is no breath in the future. It doesn't exist yet. Breathing is something that only happens in the now or in the moment. So if we can keep ourselves in the moment, then that takes us a long way to being at peace and to being able to have consciousness in the moment instead of always in reaction to what we think is happening to us on the outer world. Really fascinating stuff, right? What I find fascinating is that astrology never fails me. It only fails me when I fail to look at it or fail to notice what's happening. When I go unconscious, then I realize, oops, I should have been paying attention. So let that be something to all of you. I'm not just coming on here in the morning and chattering, although that's lots of fun. There's actually a message, right? And something that we can all take away from the conversations that we have, one-sided though they may be. And that is about how to live astrology, how our astrology can hold the map to how we can live our lives here on this little planet called Earth. So yesterday, something else fascinating happened to me. Well, it didn't really happen to me, but it was one of those things that I went, aha, struck me. And that is, I I've talked to you all many times about the gene keys, I'm sure. The Gene Keys was a book. It's a book written by Richard Rudd, and in it he takes the study of human design to the nth level, right? He organizes each of the genes or each of the gates in the human design into the shadow, gift, and Siddhic expression. Siddhic means just the highest expression of each of the energies of the potential in each of the gates on the human design or in our human design. Now, each of those gates in human design really represents a codon on the string of your DNA, on each DNA strand. There are 64 codons. There are 64 gates in human design, and there are 64 gene keys. Also, in I Ching, which is an ancient Chinese divination system, there were 64 hexagrams, or 64 ways in which energy expresses through the human being. And I love the coherence here, right? There's this like resonance with 64, and who could have made that up? I mean, ancient Chinese divination system was 64 hexagrams. We didn't realize there were 64 codons on our DNA until this century. So how did that happen, right? It's sort of magical. So the gene keys have always intrigued me and have always seemed a bit magical to me because they really take us into what it is. If you can read the gene keys in your own chart, even, it shows you the evolution of your own DNA. It shows you the evolution of your own soul, right? So recently, the Gene Keys, Richard Rudd and a team of people put out what they're calling an ambassador program. And the ambassador program is really just to be able to allow each of us as individuals that are a part of that program to really learn to live the Gene Keys, and then to be able to transmit that energy out to you all through teaching or through just the model of how we live it. And so yesterday was our first meeting as ambassadors. And it's a 9-month process, so I probably will share many different things with you through this process. And it's sort of a deep dive process. It's a contemplation, right? We have a suggested track of study, but really it's up to me where I want to take this. So I'm listening deeply to Richard talk yesterday about the energy of the gate we were looking at, which was gate 13. Which gate 13 we've talked about before, I think, in that gate 13 is the gate of listening. If you look in the Gene Keys book, which mine looks like this, I have one of the more original books. Now it's white and has a dragonfly on the front, but I kind of like the idea that this has the DNA strand on it. All right. So Gene Key 13 says, listening through love. And so we really began this process of what does it mean to listen? And what is the difference between listening and hearing? Because I think a lot of times we hear one another. I hear you speaking. I hear your problems. But I even find myself in sometimes as I hear your problem or I hear what's going on or challenging you, I want to speak to it. Right? I want to get in there and I want to tell you what's going on, how to live your life, how to fix it, or whatever it is that I want to get into a conversation with you about. But the moment that I attempt to do that, I stop listening, right? Listening is the important piece here. It's not enough just to hear, but we have to really listen to what's happening. And I think that takes us to many different levels in many different ways. So we're listening to one another. We're listening to our children, perhaps, or our spouse, or our friends, but we are also listening to what's going on in that outer world, the noise out there, right? The bombs, the shootings, the Trump tweets, the police brutality, or whatever it is that, happens to be on the screen out there. And we hear it, but are we really listening to what is it? Right? In the Course of Miracles, all of that ugliness out there in the outer world would be what they would call a call for love, a call for more love. Everything out there that isn't of love is a call for more love. It's really kind of fascinating when you start thinking about it. So So I'm sitting here kind of musing about all of this yesterday, and there's a stream of chats going down. Like, you know how we chat with one another in the Facebook Live. We can chat. Everybody says good morning, etc. Well, there's a chat in, we're using the Zoom platform, and I happened to notice this person say, oh, and by the way, did you know that gene key 13 and 7 are in the North Node and the South Node right now? And it was like, light bulb. Duh, right? I should have known this. I do know this, right? I do know this because I do see that that's happening right now for us. So I get my trusty little ephemeris out and I look it up and I go, oh my gosh, the North Node, which we were talking about yesterday. Remember, the North Node is destiny. It's been at the point of a yod. Do you remember us talking about that yesterday? The yod being the point, the finger of God, sometimes we call it. It's made up by two planets at its base that are 60 degrees apart, which is in sextile, meaning a nice flow of energy. Good morning, Mimi. And she had a Mercury attack. Oh, I love it. In other words, technology failed you this morning, perhaps. Or your brain did, your mind, right? Mercury rules the mind as well. So if your mind goes or your technology goes, you know what's going on. So I looked this up and I realized that the North Node and the South Node are at 13 and 7, but they're only there until April 2nd, which is literally only 2 weeks away, a little less than 2 weeks away now. Holy God, are we already that far into the year? Amazing. So need attack here too. What do you mean, Suzanne? Or did you have an attack there, a Mercury attack? I love that Mercury attack. Actually, I don't like it when it happens, but tomorrow, as Mercury is turning retrograde, it is actually retrograde in my own chart. So I'm hoping, my tongue can fall in line and do things that it normally can't do as far as speaking is concerned. And tech and operator error. Gotcha, Mimi, gotcha. Yep. I have days like that too. Funny story, the other day I went into my website. I was going to, every day after I do these broadcasts, I produce them down into an MP4 so that I can upload it as a YouTube. When I went to do what I do every day, I suddenly had a brain fart. And I'm like looking at my back end of my website going, that doesn't even look right. And I kept going to this one page and it said instant page. And I'm like, that isn't right. Literally, so I kept going back out, coming back in, and it kept taking me to the same place. This is like, groove thinking, right? I kept being in the same groove, and I wasn't stepping back far enough to go, oh, you keep hitting the wrong button. But instead, I panicked. So I'm thinking I've been hacked. Literally, my mind went to the worst thing ever, being hacked. And I call up GoDaddy, and I'm like, what the heck is going on? I can't get my, He's like, ma'am, do you see that button up there? Uh-huh. That's the one you need to press. And I went, oh my God, I know this. I know this. What was I doing? I have no idea. So it hits the best of us girls. It really does. All of us at some point have a Mercury brain fart moment. And usually mine's fairly public. Like that to me was like, oh my gosh. I just showed my full-on Mercury mind break to this gentleman who's like, I don't know why she bothered to call. She could have figured this out on her own. I bet those kinds of places get a huge uptick in business or in calls during Mercury retrograde because people go, duh. Mimi says, laugh out loud, been there, done that. Suzanne says all of her electronics are acting up. Yeah. That's our Mercury going retrograde. We got to love it. But, it is going retrograde. I will get back to gate 13 and 7. It is going retrograde, of course, in Aries. So we can expect that if anything is new in our lives, anything that we started out doing, any new procedures, like even this idea of me studying through this Gene Keys ambassador program, or I also started a program with Oprah and Deepak Chopra about reducing weight, literally weight on your body, but also the burdens and the weight that we carry within us. So I suspect that that's going to be a little bit longer drawn out process than what it would assume to be. Like it's supposed to be a 21-day process for the Deepak Oprah thing, and it is supposed to be a 9-month deal with the gene keys. But I suspect because all of this is coming up as Mercury's turning retrograde, that there may be some lengthening of the period of time in which I deal with this, which is fine by me because these are study things. These are awesome, wonderful things to learn and dive deep into. But there may be other things in your life that you started recently. And if you find yourself stumbling or finding, that things are getting in the way of your straight line progress, don't get upset about it. Just realize Mercury's gone retrograde in the sign of action, Aries. That means we are slowing down the action. And we might be slowing down the action so that we don't hurt ourselves. For those of you who were late coming in this morning, I was talking about the duck incident yesterday with my husband and how if he had read the information I sent to him, he probably would have been more in the now and not hurt himself at work yesterday. So interesting how nature is warning us all the time or informing us all the time, and we sometimes just don't hear or we're not listening, right? That takes us back to that gene key 13 and gene key 7. Gene key 13 is really where the North Node is, the North Node destiny. So a part of your destiny at this point in time, whether your destiny is in Leo or not, or if your destiny is at gate 13 or not, it doesn't really matter because every one of us have this North Node placement right now in our chart in gate 13, which says we got to listen. We must go deeper into this idea of are we really listening? Because if we're really listening, our destiny is laid out before us, right? Our life path is laid out before us. We know intrinsically within. I can guarantee you that if I really stopped to think or feel or listen to my inner workings, I would be exactly where I am meant to be. In fact, I would posit that we are all exactly where we're meant to be right now, no matter what you think, right? Because maybe where you are right now is all about learning to listen to your intuition, or maybe it's all about learning to listen to what's going on, how the outer world is informing what is going on for you. Maybe it's about listening to the inner voice and hearing what is coming up for you and what direction to go. At the lower level, of course, remember the gene keys are in levels. It is the shadow, the gift, and the siddhi. The shadow is discord, right? Discord when we don't really listen, when we're not paying attention. At the gift level, it's discernment. And Lila, if you're out there listening this morning, or if you listen later, this is for you, because she said to me the other day in an email that the word discernment kept coming up for her. And now I know why the word discernment is coming up for her. She's working her North Node right now. So Lila, you're working your North Node, you're hearing the message from your North Node, and it is all about discernment. Now, the word discernment is kind of interesting because on one hand, it almost feels snobby or snooty, right? Like if someone says they have a discerning eye, it's almost like they turn up their nose to the regular foods because they only want organic foods or whatever, right? Or they won't buy Ross regular department store things because they only want designer things. But ultimately, discernment is really about knowing what's correct for you, right? Maybe it is that regular foods have these GMO things part of it, or you can't tell what's in it, and your body reacts negatively to it. But when you eat organic foods, your body hums and it sings and it loves it. That's discerning, right? You've noted the difference. You know what is correct and true for you. You're following your inner compass. So discernment isn't about sticking up your nose in the air to not be around that group of people because, you just feel like you're energetically out of sync with them. It's that you're being discerning. And discerning means I know what's correct for me. I know what's good for me. I'm listening, not watching, I'm listening to what's going on in my inner world and also observing and listening to what's happening in my outer world. The highest expression of gate 13 is empathy. So empathy allows us to what? Get in touch with feelings. What are other people feeling about? So you don't have to hurt these people's feelings because you don't want to be with them. You just can say to them very simply, I think I've gone as far as I can with you all in this group. And so now I'm going to be, over here doing this now. Nothing about having to hurt people's feelings, nothing about having to be snobby or snooty. Discernment and empathy go hand in hand to put us in the right place at the right time with the right people or the right products or the right opportunities. Okay. Now the South Node is at gate 7. Gate 7, I think we talked about gate 7 pretty much a couple of weeks ago because its lower expression is that of division. And the South Node is sort of an interesting place because I like to think of the South Node as the cup that holds all of our experiences, our talents, our gifts, the things that we brought with us into this incarnation. Some people would call that karma because karma is also a part of our experience. And I never try to use that word in a negative way because I don't see it as negative. I just see it as like, let's balance the scale a bit. But in relation to the South Node is often dragging us backwards to doing things in a way that no longer work for us. So we have to follow the North Node, but we take the gifts and talents with us to the North Node. I hope that makes sense, right? Because you do come with all these things, right? You don't want to just dump them out and forget about them. You don't want to live in the past either. You want to be able to take the best of everything that you brought and apply it to everything that is here in this moment for you to use in a new way. And so what did we bring with us? The gifts are guidance and virtue. But the division of the shadow is what is holding sway in the outer world right now. We see it everywhere. Everything about our outer world is showing us this division. It's showing us that we're still living. Hi, Londa. She's hello from the Sea of Galilee. Oh my gosh, I cannot wait until you come back so you can tell us all about your adventures. The Sea of Galilee. So you're in Israel then, right? Wonderful, wonderful. Good to hear from you. We'll have to have her on the show when she gets back so she can share with us all the magical things. She's been posting pictures on Facebook as well of the things that she can, of holy sites and so forth. And they're beautiful. And it's an extraordinary adventure she's on. And I can't wait to hear all about it, Londa. And I invite you to come on the show, Miss Projector, so that you can share those with us. So gate 7, the South Node says, okay, we've brought with us these virtues. We've brought with us guidance. How do we turn that out into the North Node now and move it toward discernment and empathy? She was on the Syrian border today, sending peace. That's lovely. They need it. They need it. That's wonderful, wonderful. I hope you guys can feel the difference from your efforts over there. It's amazing because at least over here in the States, I haven't heard anything about what's going on over there. And that could be because I haven't really been paying attention, but maybe it's because what work you're doing over there is creating an effect, rippling out to peace for that region of the world. Let's hope that that's what it is. You guys are awesome. So, division, right? Poor Londa out there in the world of division, right? The Muslims versus the Christians. And I mean, it goes much deeper than that, no doubt. But how do we heal that division, right? Well, we heal it in ourselves first, right? I love that Londa and her group are out there and praying peace and praying, this coming back together. But ultimately, their prayers are also being about healing themselves within, because we can heal our divisions within us, and we begin to see that world resonate differently outside of us. Kind of fun stuff here. All right, let's talk about the astrology of the day. By the way, BTW, moon void, of course, all day today. For you all in the East Coast, we'll start there with you guys, 1:21 p.m. till 1:30 a.m. It's a 12-hour void of course moon. So 1:30 tomorrow morning, you are released from the void, of course, all of that happening, of course, when the moon moves out of Taurus, where it is today, and off into Gemini, my favorite placement for it. For us on the West Coast, literally most of our workday, all of our workday, because for us it's 10:21 a.m. to 10:30 p.m. tonight. Moon void, of course. By the way, Londa, I'm not sure what that means for you guys time-wise, but if you are engaged in prayer or meditation, that is the absolute best use of the void, of course, moon. So keep praying, keep meditating, keep sending peace and love out there to all the peoples of Syria and of the Middle East in general. So anyway, for us on the West Coast, 10:21 a.m. So in the next couple hours, I actually have a reading to do this morning, right in the midst of all of that, to 10:30 p.m. tonight. So this day, it may be a day that has to be repeated in some ways. Try to be as gentle and kind with yourself. Don't start any huge projects today. Don't send out any real important emails. It's interesting, don't you think, that we're released from the void, of course, moon on the day that the the planet of communication goes to retrograde. So it's like, is this a joke? Really? Is this a joke? Because tomorrow may also have some really interesting things happening in it. As far as our transits for the day, it's kind of a really mixed bag of days, right? Because we have the void, of course, moon, which is, taking us into more quiet territory, more meditative, prayerful kind of territory. But at the same time today, the moon is opposing Jupiter. I wish I had known that was coming. I wish I had really paid attention to this yesterday, because the moon opposing Jupiter is often the thing that gets us to do stuff out of proportion to what we're capable of. It's sometimes that and the square to Jupiter is the time where we run a mile a day, let's say, and today we decide we're going to run a marathon. And of course, then your muscles scream at you. You can't do this to me. Your lungs are screaming at you. Your heart's pounding out of your chest because 1 mile a day does not equate to a jump of 25 more miles to run a marathon. So keeping things proportional today, right? If one donut looks tasty and you've been really good and you want to eat that donut, great, eat that donut, but don't eat 10 of them, right? A little goes a long way on a day like today. And that means if you find yourself also in a conflict with somebody, say your piece maybe, or as kindly and gently as you can, and move on. Don't keep browbeating and saying it over and over and over again. It isn't going to go well. Other people who are unconscious of this may find themselves overdoing. If you have an opportunity, if you're in that person's life and you see that, you might be able to gently call it to their attention. Like, maybe 2 miles is better than 26 miles today, honey. Don't you think that might be better? Gently. The moon is also in a trine with powerful and empowering Pluto today. That means the energy of our emotions, of our soul, is moving very smoothly with the energy of Pluto. I don't see that as causing any major blowouts or anything huge. Sometimes I think what happens when the moon is in a trine with Pluto, we somehow get directed internally to what might be considered internal ahas, perhaps, an internal look inward that gives us access to a revelation of sorts. So, there's a definite sort of pull inward when we have the moon trining Pluto. So Roseanne, who's normally one of the first ones in here in the morning, says, "Oh no, I'm late. I totally lost track of time." You're in good company today, Roseanne, because either tech glitches, time glitches, or whatever has kept a couple of people in that same situation. So you're all in good company with one another, as Mercury is really slowing down to turn retrograde tomorrow. I love it. I just love this playing of of the astrology in the world, that every day I get to mark this. It was funny when I was in the hospital with Amanda and Brian as they were expecting the delivery of Wyatt. I sat there going, oh, well, if he's born today, he's going to have the moon in this, and he's going to do this and this and this. And they're both looking at me like, how do you know that without looking at it? I'm like, because every day I go on air and I tell everybody what's happening. So I'm really in tune with what's going on right now. And it was true. It was like I could outline his entire chart. The only part I couldn't see was the house relationship, because that would be based on time of birth. And what the rising sign would be would determine, how that was going to play out. So it was kind of fun. I mean, I could predict what he was going to be like just based on me coming on here every morning and talking to you guys, because I was so in tune right at that time with what's going on. So I really love that I do this, right? Not just because I'm an astrologer and I love doing that, but because it really has impact in my outer world life. And I love that. Okay. So my bad, yesterday I did not get the Zoom link done. It is up here, number 1. See my little to-do list for today, set up Zoom for Maxine. Number 1 on my list. We'll get it done. So check here. I probably will do that before I respond to your comments on the video this morning, so that I can post that link, because I want everybody to be able to meet Maxine tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time right here. But we'll be using Zoom so that we can all see one another. So if you got to get dressed and you got to put your makeup on to be able to be seen, do it early if you can. But guess what? We don't care what you look like. We just want you there. Your presence, your love, your acceptance, your everything. We want to be able to have your energy added to ours as I introduce you to this wonderful woman, and we tap into some of her wisdom. She's got about 20 years on me in terms of wisdom in astrology, and I just can't wait for that. So tomorrow morning, you're going to follow the Zoom link. And you can do that about 2 or 3 minutes before I think that we go live, so that you're already in there. I will go about putting everybody in so that I can see you or hear you at least. You don't have to be seen, so don't panic if you didn't get up in time to put your makeup on. We want you there, right? We want your energy. I would love to introduce her to all of you. So follow the Zoom link, and I have no clue what yet we're going to talk about. I'm going to make a list of questions and stuff, but I have a feeling with 2 Geminis talking to one another, it's probably going to take off in a direction that I can't even predict at this point in time. So I'm really excited by that. In the meantime, I wish you all a wonderful day. For those of you who came in late, no worries, because the video archives right away and you can go back and listen to it. And I love you all. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow morning. Bye for now. I can't wait either, Suzanne. Thank you. Bye.